Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. As the war in Iran drags on, Tehran just made an announcement that they're going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. And in response to this new development, President Trump summons more than half a dozen countries, including Communist China, to send in their warships to safeguard the security of the navigation of the strait, and of course the oil tankers, of course. And President Trump even declared, if Beijing doesn't lend a hand in this affair, that he cannot rule out the possibility of canceling the trip to Beijing. And would he do that? Although he just made an announcement that he will postpone the trip for one more month because of the war. But would he really cancel the trip, or would he not? That's the way he addresses it all the time. And how will China respond to this new development? And that's something that's worth more attention. Let's start from here. As of now, President Trump has returned to the White House for more than 14 months. And during this period of time, he has done a lot of important things. He started the tariff war, and he has access to the two important harbors of the Panama Canal. And he bombarded Iran in June 2025, and he arrested President Maduro of Venezuela earlier this year. And starting in late February, he joined-handed with Israel to launch an airstrike against Iran, and the war still goes on and on. We don't know when it's going to stop. And he made several arms sales to Taiwan. So all these are important things he has done. And on the other hand, all these actions he has taken, or these policies he's been putting forward, we can say that they either directly or indirectly weaken Communist China in one way or another. So the question is, how does Beijing look at these things, and how will they respond? That we can see that in terms of the tariffs war, Beijing fought back fiercely, and they have now reached an uneasy truce for 1 year, if that can last that long. And in terms of the harbors of the Panama Canal, Beijing not only criticized Washington, and they filed a lawsuit, and now they put, very recently, they just put 28 Panamanian vessels or ships under custody. And in terms of bombarding Iran last year, they Beijing covertly sending some help and some material to Iran to support the Iranian government. And in terms of the capture of the President Maduro of Venezuela, Beijing made a very strong protest, but not much following up actions. And it's pretty much the same as the attack against Iran earlier this year. So this is kind of unusual, but there's one more thing. And the arms sales to Taiwan is probably the only issue that Beijing reacted very strongly against the United States. And we can imagine that there will be some more following up actions from Beijing, and that would be very strong and very tense. According to open source, the United States had made 2 batches of arms sales to Taiwan since Trump returned to the White House. First one happened in November last year, 2025. A total of 320 million US. Basically, they sold aircraft parts to Taiwan to strengthen Taiwan's fighting capability of the jet fighters and bombers and everything. The second one came in December last year. It was a total of 11 billion US. That's probably the record high arms sales to Taiwan in one year, in a single year, which included weapon systems like HIMARS missile systems, and ATACMS missiles, and Alice 600 series drones, and some call it the kamikaze drones, and anti-tank ammunitions, and things like that. So these are very advanced and very powerful weapon systems provided to Taiwan from the United States, which is kind of a record-breaking arms sales in terms of their military transaction between the two countries. And the news says that Washington just frozen another batch of arms sales to Taiwan, the total of 14 billion US dollars, plus possible another 6 billion US dollars arms sales to Taiwan, including many more advanced weapon systems. And the reason for the freeze is because Trump does not want to upset Beijing, because he was going to make a trip to Beijing in late March and early April. Like I just mentioned, Trump just made an announcement that he was going to postpone it for another month because of the war in Iran. Well, Beijing has been very sensitive about the bilateral relations between itself and Washington, D.C. He's fully aware of the damage these things could do to it. The tariff war, the Panama Canal, the harbors, and war in Iran, and the capture of Venezuelan president. He knows it very well. Well, in the past, he'll feel greatly infuriated by any of these developments. But this time, except for the case of arms sales to Taiwan, we can tell that Beijing exercised very great self-constraint on responding to these issues. The question is why? We've noticed that they've been saying, together we both gain, and apart we both lose. That's worth, that deserves further deliberation. But anyway, let's stop here. And that's the first reason. The second reason is they are eager to meet Trump in person, because ever since Trump returned to the White House for these 14 months, they haven't got a chance to talk to Trump directly, and they want it very badly. They're hoping to meet him in person to ease the tension between the two countries, and then they want to gain something out of this tariff war or out of this trade war. They said, well, we didn't lose last time, although we came unprepared in 2018, 2019, but this time we came not perhaps fully prepared. We stockpiled a good number of food, grains, and crude oil, and gold, and chips, and even US dollars. So we can prepare it. We need more cooperation from the United States so that we can benefit more. And that's what they want. Actually, Beijing had revealed its true intention on the matter late last year. In late December 2025, a professor in Shanghai, Fudan University, Shanghai, published an article entitled "The Case for a Grand Bargain Between America and China on Foreign Affairs." He argues that the trade relations between China and the United States could be a ticket for entering into a better relations for the two countries. The two countries don't have to confront nor compete if they can strike or they can reach a grand bargain between them. For instance, mainland China could increase its purchase from the United States, farm produces, and crude oil, and other things, and or perhaps they can make more investment in United States manufacturing industries. On the American side, they can lift their ban on technology or on patents on against China, and China can lift its ban on the export of rare earths and the critical minerals and things like that. But the more important thing, as Professor Wu argues, is the geopolitical competition between the two countries in the Asia-Pacific region. For instance, the Korean Peninsula and South China Sea. But the key issue is, of course, the Taiwan issue. And he argues that if they want to avoid a war between the two countries and reach a comprehensive agreement on the issue, that means they have to alleviate or to ease the competition over Taiwan. For instance, if the United States can slow down or to postpone its militarization process around the Taiwan region, then things will go for the better. And Beijing could respond by reducing its military pressure against Taiwan. So that's a basic argument provided for the so-called grand bargain between the two countries. So as we see it now, if Trump does pay a trip to Beijing, either late March or 1 month from then it's very likely that Beijing will make the proposition in front of Trump when he's in Beijing. So the question is, how will President Trump react to this request from Beijing? Well, as we see it, President Trump has all the initiative or all the cards in his hands. Although Beijing would imply or try to argue that they have rare earths, they have the critical minerals, and they're willing to sign a trade agreement between the two countries, or they have the strong manufacturing capabilities, and so on and so forth. But we must remember the American friends, that you have all the cards in your hands, and you're actually in driver's seat on the matter. So there's no need for you to make any big concessions toward Beijing. And actually, you can pressure Beijing into making more concessions to you. For instance, to persuade Iran into capitulation, to urge Beijing to take part in the arms limitation talks, especially on nuclear weapons, and not to offer more aid for Russia to invade Ukraine, and not to sell the fentanyl or the related material to other countries, and to help them to sell to the United States. And lastly, no more pressure upon Taiwan, or no more military harassment against Taiwan, and things like that. So again, let me remind our American friends, you have actually all the cards in your hands. So not to make any unnecessary concessions to Beijing. So actually, you're winning. The question is how big a win you want. Okay, I think that's all I want to share with you today. I hope you like today's program. And please share it with your friends and subscribe to our program. And do remember to click the icon bell. I'll see you next time.